Serial killers have always been one of the creepiest elements of crime. Serial killers hit that ick part of our brains that try and fails to understand why they would do their heinous crimes in the first place. If you go to Netflix, some of the most watched shows are those serial killer documentaries, so we do like them. And today we're going to look for a little serial killer weird on today's episode of 5 Weird Things. Welcome to the channel. Years ago, one of my hobbies was reading books about serial killers, and then I discovered that you can get the court transcripts from their trials online. I was hooked. Manson was one of my favorites. His trial was pure chaos. Not really a serial killer, but still. Now, it's a sick question, but who is your favorite serial killer? I gotta go with John Gacy. Let me know down in the comments. All right, let's get into it. First, the stuff we should all know. A serial killer, typically defined as an individual who has murdered 3 or more people over a period of time with a cooling off period between each murder. Unlike mass murderers, who often commit multiple murders in a single event or location, serial killers usually carry out their killings in a series of separate incidents. Serial killers often have distinct patterns or motives behind their crimes, and they may exhibit certain characteristics such as a lack of empathy, a desire for control or power, and a tendency to manipulate or deceive their victims. The study of serial killers is a complex field that involves understanding psychological, sociological, and environmental factors that may contribute to their behavior. Weird thing number 5. Samuel Little, the choke and stroke killer. Samuel Little is considered one of the most prolific serial killers in United States history. He confessed to the murders of at least 93 people, primarily women, between 1970 and 2005. His victims were often marginalized individuals, including sex workers, drug addicts, women of color, making it challenging for law enforcement to connect the cases. Little's method of killing started out by punching his victims out cold, then strangling them to death. With no bullet or stab wounds, it was difficult to detect foul play. The Los Angeles Police Department gave him the nickname, the choke and stroke killer, because he often masturbated while he was strangling victims. Despite his long history of criminal activity and violence, Samuel Little managed to evade capture for decades. He was arrested multiple times for various offenses, including assault, burglary, and drug charges. But it wasn't until 2012 that he was finally apprehended on a narcotics charge in Kentucky. In 2014, DNA evidence linked him to 3 cold cases in Los Angeles, leading to his conviction for murder. Weird thing number 4. Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker. Richard Ramirez was responsible for a series of gruesome crimes, including at least 13 murders, 5 attempted murders, 11 sexual assaults, and numerous burglaries. His victim ranged in age from 6 to 82, and he often targeted couples, breaking into their homes at night and assaulting or killing them. Ramirez was heavily influenced by satanic and occult beliefs, which he incorporated into his crimes. He left behind pentagrams or other symbols at some of the crime scenes, and he often shouted, "Hail Satan," during his court appearances. This aspect of his persona added to the fear and notoriety surrounding his case. Ramirez's reign of terror came to an end in August 1985 when he was captured by a group of citizens in East Los Angeles who recognized him from media coverage. He was severely beaten before being handed over to the police. Good for them. During his trial, Ramirez displayed bizarre behavior, including flashing satanic hand signals and drawing pentagrams on his palms. In 1989, he was convicted of all charges against him and sentenced to death. He died of complications from B-cell lymphoma while on death row in 2013. Weird thing number 3. John Gacy, the killer clown. John Gacy was an American serial killer who sexually assaulted and murdered at least 33 young men and boys between 1972 and 1978 in Cook County, Illinois. Gacy earned his moniker because he often performed at children's parties and charity events as Pogo the Clown, using his clown persona to lure his victims. After luring his victims to his home under various pretexts, Gacy would typically incapacitate them before sexually assaulting and strangling them to death. He then buried the bodies in the crawl space beneath his house or disposed of them in a nearby river. The sheer number of victims and the gruesome manner in which they were disposed of shocked the nation when the crimes were discovered. Gacy's crimes came to light in December 1978 when police investigating the disappearance of a young man traced him back to Gacy's home. Upon searching Gacy's property, they discovered human remains buried in the crawl space. Gacy was arrested and eventually confessed to the murders, leading to his trial and conviction. In 1980, he was sentenced to death and executed by lethal injection in 1994. Weird thing number 2, Ted Bundy, the lady killer. Ted Bundy was an American serial killer who operated in various states in the 1970s. Born Theodore Robert Bundy on November 24, 1946, he confessed to the murders of at least 30 young women, but is suspected of having killed many more. Bundy was known for his charming demeanor and good looks, which he used to gain the trust of his victims before assaulting and murdering them. His crimes often involved abductions, rapes, acts of necrophilia. Bundy was eventually captured in 1978 and stood trial for multiple counts of murder. Despite representing himself in court and attempting to manipulate the proceedings, he was found guilty and sentenced to death. He was executed in the electric chair in Florida on January 24, 1989. Bundy's case remains one of the most notorious in the annals of American criminal history. Bundy managed to escape from custody twice during his criminal career. In 1975, he escaped from a Colorado courthouse library where he was researching his legal defense and went on to commit further murders before being recaptured. Then in 1977, Bundy escaped from a prison in Colorado by crawling through a hole in the ceiling of his cell. During his time on the run, he traveled to Florida and committed a series of brutal murders before being apprehended again. Despite being a convicted serial killer, Ted Bundy represented himself in court during his trials for multiple murders. He was known for his legal knowledge and often clashed with the judge and prosecution. Despite his efforts to defend himself, Bundy was ultimately found guilty and sentenced to death for his crimes. And finally, weird thing number 1, Jeffrey Dahmer, the Milwaukee Cannibal. Jeffrey Dahmer was also known not just as the Milwaukee Cannibal, but also the Milwaukee Monster. He was an American serial killer and sex offender, murdered and dismembered 17 men and boys between 1978 and 1991. Dahmer's crimes included rape, necrophilia, and cannibalism. He typically lured his victims to his apartment with promises of money or alcohol before drugging them, strangling them, and engaging in acts of sexual assault and mutilation. Dahmer's crimes were uncovered in July 1991 when police responded to a disturbance at his apartment in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. During the investigation, they discovered human remains, photographs of dismembered bodies, and evidence of Dahmer's grisly activities. Dahmer was arrested and eventually confessed to his crimes, providing detailed accounts of his murders and the disposal of his victims' bodies. Jeffrey Dahmer's case raised questions about the nature of psychology and the treatment of individuals with severe personality disorders. Dahmer exhibited disturbing behavior from a young age, including an obsession with death and dismemberment. He was diagnosed with various mental health conditions, including borderline personality disorder, schizotypical personality disorder, paraphilic disorders. His case prompted further study into the early detection and treatment of individuals who exhibit signs of psychopathy and antisocial behavior. What I found fascinating, he saw himself as the devil. He said that on numerous occasions, and in prison, Jeffrey Dahmer was beaten to death with a broom handle in the bathroom by another inmate who had mental health issues, but he saw himself as God. Typical case of good versus evil, good one. Well, that's it for today's episode. I hope it gave you some chills. It was a lot of fun to research this one. As I said, this used to be my hobby. Now please like, subscribe, share this video. Help me grow this channel. Leave any opinions that you have down in the comments. And if you're still watching, today's code word is stranger danger. Put that down in the comments, then go check to make sure that front door is locked. Take care and stay safe out there.